Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Gam Ganapate Namaha. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. Gurur Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Trambake Devi Narayani Namostute. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samstita. Namastasya, 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 Namo Namaha. Om Aim Hrim Klim Chamundai Viche Swaha. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha. Shri Paramagurubhyo Namaha. Shri Hanumate Namaha. Welcome to Nitya Satsang. Today is the 7th of January 2026. I want to offer prostrations, Ananta Koti Namaskaram, Danvat Pranam to all the sages, devotees, bhaktas present on the planet today, and to Bhagavad Tattva Paramatma present everywhere at all times in the heart of every single being. We're continuing to examine and to better practically understand, practically move into that state of Śuddha Upāsanā. Śuddha Upāsanā means complete relational absorption in one Swarup of God. This is the concept of Śuddha Upāsanā, or also that we can say that evolves into Divya Upāsanā. Please remember, God is only one, Brahman is one, Parabrahman is one, there is no division in that. But for our Antaḥkaraṇa, our mind, our mental mechanism, it needs fixation in one place. That fixation in one place is where the Antaḥkaraṇa, composed of the mind, intellect, the ahankar, the ego function, and the memory, man, buddhi, chit, ahankar, these four are turned over at the feet of Paramatma. Without the destruction of energy, or we can put it this way, the conservation of Shakti. So these are the two key points, that the Antaḥkaraṇa that we all have, that is functioning in many different ways. It's spinning, spinning, spinning. But it gets stabilized and it is turned over, samarpan. It is called, it is the actual, how can we say it? It is the actual offering of the mind. It's like that old story that says, what does God not have? God does not have our mind. God has everything else. It's like that. So we have to give it over to Paramatma. And then the whole show begins. So the Antaḥkaraṇa means the internal instrument, which is our brain, mind complex. We have that. It can be brought into a linkage, and that bringing that Antaḥkaraṇa into linkage with one Ishtadevata brings about the harmonization of the Shakti inside the Antaḥkaraṇa. Because the whole ball game is of Shakti. Shakti ka hi sab ye process hai. Shakti meaning the dynamic force and power that is running through our system. We cannot, we can only do everything. It could be anything and everything. It is only because of the presence of Shakti. Without that, nothing is possible. Nothing can ever happen also. So, we already have a lot of energy, but once we recognize that that energy is flowing inside the Antaḥkaraṇa to give us the experiences of the world outside. Yes, the world that we consider to be the outside world, that we are aware of and interact with through this body, that experience itself is a manifestation of Shakti, and it is also an experience that can pull the core power in many different ways. And that is what we call Maya. The core energy that is called Kundalini, that is Mahashakti herself, present inside the brain, mind, spinal cord, everywhere inside the chakras, all. That is to be tuned, it is to be brought into a very clear laser-like focus on the goal. Now this is very interesting. In general, there are two types of types of upasana. One type of upasana is using Shakti, meaning the internal power, to do upasana of the incarnations of God, Ram, Krishna, Shiva, etc. But there's another kind of upasana, and that is to use Shakti to do upasana of Shakti, that is Devi upasana. And that is a different matter. वो अलग बात है. The first type of upasana, where there is Shakti being used to worship Ram, worship Krishna, worship Shiva, worship Ramakrishna Paramahansa, or different gurus or different teachers, or different incarnations, enlightened beings, Bhagavan Swaminarayan in Swaminarayan Sampradaya, etc. That is using Shakti to worship Bhagavat Tattva. That is actually a much lighter form of upasana than the upasana of Shakti herself. That is a very intense and fierce form of upasana. So there are basically two paths. Many times we don't realize this, but this is true. Shakti ki upasana, or using Shakti to do upasana. Two different matters. When we are worshipping Krishna, for example, Sri Krishna Bhagavan, we're using the energies within to do the upasana. We can use certain amount of mantras, like Navaran mantra as a beginning, but then the main upasana is Bhagavan Krishna ki. So you're using energy to that, and that Paramatma is also a type of, wo Shaktiman hi hai. But the difference is that it's a much lighter form. And it's a little bit more systematic, perhaps, or it's easier in some sense. I don't want to say that necessarily, but it's, it's doable, it's manageable. Ye jo direct Shakti ki upasana hai, that is a different matter. That is only for the very few individuals who can do that in this sansar. It is not possible for most people, and it is not advisable for most people. Isiliye special guru hona chahiye, and then why you're doing it also is another whole question. Right? Because you're tapping into the core power itself. It's like going into the nuclear reaction itself, rather than using that nuclear reaction to light up, different homes and light bulbs and whatnot. That's the difference. Isn't that we're sitting at home right now? We have electricity flowing through here, but we're not sitting inside the nuclear reactor. That nuclear reactor, or where the energy is being generated, where the reaction is happening, if we are in that, we become the reaction. That is Shakti upasana. That is Devi ki upasana. वो अलग बात है. Particularly serious levels of upasana. Just in terms of bhakti and normal level of devotion, I'm not talking about that. That's not, that is more like the lighter form. But when you're like intent on that, like for example, this Navaran mantra, people do 51,000 times, and they're just behind the Devi upasana. Then they become one with the Shakti herself, like Ramakrishna Paramahansa with Kalika Devi. Devi ki upasana is special in this way. It's special in what sense? Because it is the root power itself, Mahashakti. And you're tapping into that, not using Shakti for upasana, doing upasana of Shakti. This is many times this is not clear to people. They may not have even heard this thing, but it is true. It is absolutely correct. That is why all of the Shakti upasana has bij mantras. Just for example, the Shrim Bij Mantra, as an example. Shrim, Om, Shrim, Swaha. We can do to some extent 11 Maharas and all that. That's lighter form. We're talking about 51,000, 100,000 times Shrim Mantra, 1 million times Shrim Mantra. वो बात अलग है. That is what we call Upāsanā. Upāsanā means you are behind that one tattva 100%. Not 90%, not 95%, not 99%. 100% is just, it's like do or die attitude. It's just me and you. उनको छोड़ना ही नहीं. That is called Upāsanā. That is called Śuddha Upāsanā. Shaktiman Upāsanā. Ekagrata, ekantiki Upāsanā. A lot of words. And when we have that strength inside, for example, Bhagwan Krishna ki upasana, kisko karni hai Krishna ki upasana? It is done in so many ways. Again, we've talked about how to do it already. But then that is not to be changed. Even if thousands of people say you change this thing, it cannot be changed ever. End of story. It's called Swarup Nishta, Achal Nishta, Param Nishta. Isko change kabhi bhi nahi hota. कभी भी करना भी नहीं. Once you are clear, be clear first. सत्संग कीजिए, शास्त्रों का अभ्यास कीजिए, गुरु उनका सुनिए, do everything, and then from the heart it will be, this is my ishta and my life is for this ishta, and the end of the story. That's it. But that doesn't happen that easily. That takes time. If it happens at all, it may not happen, but if it happens, it's very special. It's wonderful. It generally doesn't happen because we have not spent the time to get to that point. Who is my ishta? What is my actual, target and focus? The target is only one. Bhagavad Tattva to ek hi tattva hai. It's not two. But it's a matter of how to approach and how to link with that. You see, so today's subject here is that these two types of upasana are there. Bhagwan Krishna or unke avatar, unki upasana hai. There's a lighter form. I'm put that in quotation. It's not like, oh, it's lighter. It's not like that. It just means that it does not have the direct intensity that Shakti Upasana has. And the simple reason behind it is because those upasanas of Bhagwan Ram, Bhagwan Krishna, Shivji, etc., they are going to help us develop systematically, and we will not be caught directly in the activations of all kinds of energies from inside that we cannot control. I'll give you an example of what can happen in the Shakti Upasana. This is why physical guru is required for Shakti Upasana. Baki iski upasana karne ki jarur nahi hai. Unki bhakti kijiye. Unka ashirwad lijiye, and then do the upasana of the incarnations. I'm talking upasana meaning 51,000 mantras, and spending 7-8 hours a day behind Shakti mantras. That can only be done under the guidance of an enlightened master. Nobody else, you cannot do it otherwise. Don't even try to do that. And you will not be able to do it also, because the Devi will not allow you to do that. She will not allow anybody to do that, first of all. कोई कर ही भी नहीं सकेगा, unless it is something that is for some special reason she allows that to happen. She will not allow that to anybody to do that also. Because see, I'll give you an example. See, we have inside of us, we have Kam, Krodh, Lobh. I'll give you this. Look at these examples. We have the sexual desires, we have desire for money, and Vishaya, the sense objects, and we have anger also. One of the things that can happen, we have upset with somebody, angry, and we start doing intense Shakti Upasana, that anger can expand 100 times. It has happened. That's why in the ancient times, and even maybe today also, many rishis who were not developed properly, they started doing this kind of Upasana. Deficiency in saintliness, sadhuta, they can give shrap to somebody. Isko shrap kehte hai. And that works also. You see, so that's a lot of history in Sanatana Dharma. You have seen in the movie serials, TV serials, kis rishis kisko shrap dete. Why is that? Because of lack of saintliness. So sant ki jo vritti, isme kisi ko shrap to dena hi nahi hai. Number one. In fact, there is a Agnya in the Shikshapatri. Shriji Maharaj has given Agnya to his saints that whatever happens, whatever anybody does, you wish well for them. You do not put any negativity out there. Kabhi bhi kisi ka किसी का अहित नहीं करना. But that's a deficiency. So in Shakti Upasana, this can happen. You're upset with somebody and then now you do a lot of intense Upasana. It can potentially harm somebody else. It'll harm you also. Because what you put out is what you get back. So the energy inside the ahankar can expand in Shakti Upasana if you don't know what you're doing. And it doesn't expand like that, but in higher sadhana, some people want to do that. God gives that opportunity that you can, if you are, because we're all children of the divine. It's Sanatan Dharma mein bahut aisi history. Asur, jisko Asur kehte. These are all upasaks of Shiv and Shakti. They're looking for vardhan and boons and this. They're looking for power. And when they do intense sadhana, because God has given us freedom, iska phal to milta hai. Definitely. When we do any sadhana with wanting a fruit, and we do the sadhana consistently without breaking it, there's a formation of the fruit and it will come to us, which is the experience we're looking for. So these are all things to keep in mind when we are continuing to move towards Paramatma. Sachin's humble recommendation, I've said it already before, Aim Bij Mantra is more than enough. 1 round, maybe 3 rounds, maybe 5 rounds, not more than 11 rounds. That's more than enough. 11 rounds is probably too much. 5 rounds is enough because it's powerful. Only Aim Bij Mantra. You don't need to do the full Navaran Mantra also. That's good enough. And that is Mahasaraswati, Devi ka Bij Mantra. Unko prarthana karna ka hamari buddhi to stay in the right direction. These other mantras, there are different starting points. And they are to be done by those who know how to do them for some particular purpose. It's a whole different matter. They're not words, they're seed, intense Shakti mantras, like Klim Bij Mantra, Shrim Bij Mantra. These are very, very potent and powerful mantras. And for our purposes, Aim is more than enough. More than enough. And Om Namah Shiva is the balancer for that, right? That's more than enough. Bahut ho gaya. And so that can be a foundation as bhakti. That's fine. Ganesh Ji ka mantra, Aim mantra, as well as Namah Shiva mantra. Do that for 5-10 minutes, and then do your upasana. Ram ki upasana, Krishna ki upasana. Devi, if you're doing Devi upasana, you have to have guru. Remember, you cannot do Devi upasana without present guru. You can do Devi ki bhakti kar sakte. Bhajan, you can do bhajans and all that. I remember one time here in the Hindu temple, there was a Gujarati pujari. His wife told me one time, he's not here now, but his wife told me that at one time during Navratri, she was listening to 21 bhajans of Devi, like focusing on Devi every day. And Devi gave her darshan and she got so frightened, because she could not handle that. इसीलिए भगवान की बात है, इसीलिए प्रेम, बहुत प्रार्थना और शक्ति उपासना is not for anybody actually. It is only for very, very few people who are qualified for that. Very few people. It is bhakti karo unki, navratri mein garba mein jao and all that kind of stuff is okay. And then do Aim Bij Mantra. Stop at Aim Bij Mantra. That's it. You don't need to do any other mantra after that. Because that is not for the common, for Grahasthashram, for the common public. It is not there. It is for very, very advanced sadhaks who have already saintliness. Sant ki vritti honi chahiye. Shakti upasana mein sant ki vritti nahi hai, isko touch nahi karna. Isko don't go into that in more detail. Okay, so it will help us to set the foundation for Ram upasana. Ram ki upasana karna. Shiv ji ki upasana. Bhagwan Krishna ki upasana. Dattatreya ji ki upasana, if you want to do that, if you are like a sannyasi, you can do Dattatreya ji ki upasana. But that is not a upasana for Grahasthashram. People have misunderstood that one also. In Marathi community particularly, a lot of misunderstanding is there. The Grahasthashram is not to do Dattatreya ji ki upasana at all. Bilkul nahi. That is a pure vairagya. It had vairagya and renunciation from this sansar. If you are a roaming monk, is that what you want to be? Going into the forest and roaming, that's who Dattatreya ji was. Whose ever upasana you're doing, that is the kind of quality you will get. And it doesn't mix with the Grahasthashram. Even this Swaminarayan Upasana is really, if you're a Grahastha, you have to follow exactly what he has said. Otherwise, your life will get spun around. I've mentioned this before also. इसीलिए कृष्ण, राधा कृष्ण की उपासना फैंटास्टिक, एवरीबडी कैन डू. शिव जी की उपासना एब्सोल्युटली फैंटास्टिक. राम जी की उपासना करो, हनुमान जी की भक्ति करो, दैट्स फाइन, absolutely fine. But be careful with Shakti Upasana and these other kinds of Upasana, like Sajanand Swami Maharaj ki Upasana, Bhagwan Swaminarayan ki Upasana. It's not a joke, you have Dharma, Gnan, Vairagya, Bhakti. Look at the criteria. It's a whole different matter. You have to live like a sannyasi while in the Grahastha ashram. Then you can do Swaminarayan Upasana. Baki, you cannot do that actually. And if you try to do it without the proper understanding and proper bhav, and you're wanting material things, no, that will not work. It will cause a lot of chaos. It will spin the bhakta around. It's a lot of literature on that. I don't want to go into that right now. किसकी उपासना कर रहे हो? भगवान तो एक ही है, बट भगवान की शक्ति अनंत है, भगवान के धाम अनंत है, भगवान का ऐश्वर्य अनंत है. And paths are many. Paths are, like for example, people who worship Ramakrishna Paramahansa. If you're really a devotee of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, you have to observe brahmacharya. That's his teaching. Look at his entire teaching. He talks about women and gold and all that thing all the time. Unki bhakti karte hai and doing some other nonsense things in life. It doesn't work like that. You cannot do upasana this way. You see, so people don't realize all this thing. And this is why Ishta Devata ki bahut importance hai isme. You can have respect for all. Bhajan, Kirtan, Mandiro mein jana, that's all very light form. That's all. Okay. I'm talking about Ishta Devata, like intense focus. I have met people like this this has happened in many, the paths of Sri Krishna also. Bhagwan Krishna ki upasana karte hai. Right? But then they may have taken Diksha, they're following a particular path, all that kind of thing. But there's deficiencies that are coming up. And those deficiencies, they are not able to remove them. Why is that? Because that criteria of bhakti, because the vasanas are pulling in some other direction. This is why Shiv and Shakti are necessary at the base. Shiv Parivar. Without their blessings, this continuous problem that is inside the mind, it doesn't go away. It cannot go away, in fact. And this is why so many Vaishnavas have gone off track. They get excited, to do bhakti, bhajan, kirtan, this, that. And then because it's a path of emotion, divine emotion. And then what happens? It flips. The vasanas will thrash the individual. It's happened. There's so many incidences and stories. I don't want to go into all that. The bahut dhyan rakhna. This oscillation, watch out for oscillation. Sometimes once you get into the devotional, emotional ecstasy, we talked about it the other day. Wow, itna anand milta hai, anandamay kosh. Yes. How long that will last? You'll come down from that because it's a high. It's like a drug, basically. The brain is generating a drug. That's what it is. But it's a good drug. It's not a harmful one. But you have to recognize that is not continuous. It is an ecstatic high generated by the brain. Because the nervous system is transforming into ecstasy. But it's not, you cannot remain in just ecstasy. You get some glimpse of that, come down from it, then rebalance again, and then shantaras, other different rasas are there, so that there is more contemplation, karma yoga, because it's all combined. Everything has to remain in balance. So watch out for these kinds of things, because in the devotional path, there can be a lot of emotional activation. There is, in fact. But then that emotion was activated because of deficiency in vairagya, and that will flip back the person straight into vasanas, and the vasanas will increase. In fact, bhakti on one side is increasing, and once it flips, vasanas increase on the other side. Guaranteed. 100% this is. Gunadhitanand Swami and Sajanand Maharaj, both of them talked about this. Bhakti ma swabhav vadhaye. He said, Bhakti ma swabhav vatta jai. This is Swamini Vato. This is in Swamini Vato, actually. How can that be? Is it true? Yes, because of the deficiency in vairagya, deficiency in jnana, deficiency in other supporting connectors that protect bhakti. Bhakti is fantastic. It is the topmost. But to protect bhakti, so that there is no deflection, step by step by step, this will evolve. These are things to keep in mind. Once Ishta Devata is chosen, mandir is set up, you are serious about sadhana, it is going to progress. Do systematic sadhana. Because this is a type of internal bond. The Antaḥkaraṇa that we have been talking about is, its function changes. Meaning its activity changes radically from inside. हाँ. Because मंदिर कहाँ है? अंतर में ही है. See, we want to go from the Vishayi state, the binding state of the Vishayas, into Mumukshutvam, from Mumukshutvam into the Mukta state. Jivan Mukta Sthiti. Main Mukta hu, bas. The Mukta means I'm a freed being. The freed meaning what? What is it that is freed? The binding of the Antaḥkaraṇa is freed completely. So the binding of the Antaḥkaraṇa is such that it will spin the sadhak. This happens in sadhana. Those of you who are taking this path for Upāsanā sadhana, for going further, you will see that you will be able to focus your mind and place your mind towards Ishta Devata for some time, and then when other things happen in life, it will start spinning in other directions. If that happens, which it will, remember Paramatma, Bhagwan ka naam lena, offer the actions into the light of God. So it becomes an hour-to-hour, day-to-day connection. And that is how we will then move into a very beautiful, loving connection with Bhagwan. मैं किसकी उपासना कर रहे हो, बहुत ध्यान रखना. It's extremely, extremely important. Right? So that upasana is then solidified. And once it gets solidified through one Lila Charitra scripture, Gnan scripture should be the Gita for everybody. But there's also supporting Gnan scriptures. These two have to be there. Ishtadev ki murti, unke jo anadi bhakta hai, unki murti. Or, so Bhagwan Ram ki upasana karni hai. Bhagwan Ram ye ishta hai. हनुमान जी उनके अनादि भक्त है. दोनों का महिमा होना चाहिए. राधिका जी वो अनादि भक्त है, हलादिनी शक्ति है भगवान कृष्ण की. So this is how this works. So the bhakta and Bhagwan both should be present in the center temple. And then Lila scripture, Gnan scripture, and the stotras that go along with it. Right? So for example, Bhagwan Krishna ki upasana karte, the Krishna Sahasranam hai, Vishnu Sahasranam, you can do all the Vaishnava stotras are there. You can also do Shiv Sahasranam, but that's a side thing. It's part of the bhakti, not part of the upasana. Ganesh ji, Shiv ji, sabka different mantras, you can do all those things as we said, but that is part of bhakti, and then it's a support for the upasana. Upasana ki Śuddhi, isko kehte hai. And then there's no fanaticism, there's no division, nothing like that. There is a marriage, lagni. Lagni lagi re mare, shamaliya sangate mare, lagni lagi. Right? It's a beautiful, kitne sundar sundar bhajan hai. So that internal lagan, aisi lagi lagan, mira ho gayi magan, lagan, it's an internal connection. Now, the Shakti Upasana stuff we were talking about, that is a different matter. वो एक अलग subject ही है. I don't want to go into that right now because that is वो मार्ग ही एक अलग मार्ग है, and that is a very different matter altogether. Leave that alone. भक्ति करना, माता जी की उनका आशीर्वाद लेना, उनको प्रार्थना करना कि हे महाशक्ति आप दया कीजिए कि हम जो इष्ट है उनके साथ proper mind and everything goes there. That's up to that point is perfectly okay. ठीक है. Right, so keep these points in mind. Now, a couple of other things before we close for today. The Antaḥkaraṇa, remember, has four functions. The man, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. Four functions. What are they? Be very clear. Mind is our conscious mind. Buddhi is our intelligence. Chitta meaning the storehouse of memories. Ananta janma ke memories isme chitta mein hai. This is part of the subtle body. And the ahankar. The ahankar has a function. Me and mine, me and mine. So the ahankar is now directed towards Paramatma. All four of these are directed towards Ishta Devata. अहंकार क्या कहते हैं? भगवान महाराज है, भगवान मेरा है, मैं भगवान का हूं, वो मेरा है, बस. This is called the giving over of the ahankar into the swarup of Paramatma. And that giving over is actually through mantras, stotras, bhajans, kirtan. That is how that ahankar is given over. And once it is given over into that swarup, which is actually inside our, this is how where the Shakti becomes, it is not Shakti ki upasana, Shakti dwara upasana. Now the energies are that the ego was sucking up is now given over at the feet of Paramatma. So it's called, in Gujarati, with Shakti no upyog karine upasana karvi. Shakti dwara upasana. We want to do upasana with Shakti. Shakti ki upasana, leave that subject aside. That's not for nearly 99.99999%. It's not for all of that. Leave that aside completely. Right? So, Mata Ji ki bhakti karna, but jisko Shakti upasana karni hai, you have to have an enlightened master who जिनको साक्षात्कार है माता जी का, और उनकी आज्ञा, उनकी अनुमति, देवी की कृपा, or what is the purpose also behind it. It's a whole different matter completely. I have learned that over the years, but I did not know that until about 7-8 years ago. And then when Sachin does it only, Siddha Kunjikam and all that stuff, we do that for the benefit of others as a seva, and that permission is there only for that purpose. It's not done for any other reason. Seva ke liye, because it's a medicine basically. So, but we'll leave that subject aside. But for all of us, generally, माता जी का आशीर्वाद तो लेना ही चाहिए. उनकी भक्ति भी करो, भजन भी सुनो, सब कुछ करो, and then go into your regular upasana. So Shivji ki upasana. And see, here's the other thing. If you are really intent on doing Devi upasana, Sachin's recommendation is Ramakrishna Paramhans ke saath link kar dena. Yeah, if you make him your guru, your Sadguru, completely, and go into his life and his teachings and everything, and then if it is something that is really developing in the right way, then maybe you can do the Shakti Upasana. I'm talking about like higher level of Upasana, right? Not lower level of Upasana, like super high level. Actually, the best thing to do is to do Shivji ki Upasana, because Shiv has certain amount of Shakti already within, and that's good enough. But direct Shakti ki Upasana for higher level is a different matter. It's you have to have, and I think to do that, Ramakrishna Paramhans as Sadguru would be fantastic. He would be the right person. And then you have to follow what he has said completely, his life and other things like that, to do that kind of Upasana, because he was a Shakti Upasak himself. Right? So anyway, but that's a different matter. Thodi alag baat hai, thodi isme. It goes into non-dual Shaiva Tantra and goes. It's Shakti Upasana is lot of Tantra Upasana, and it is a direct energy Upasana. Now, so that same power is with us, but when we connect with Bhagwan Ram and Bhagwan Krishna and incarnations, it becomes much more doable. We cannot handle because if we dump a lot of energy inside the system, it awaken it, and tayari nahi hai iske liye, what will happen? So that is the reason why. So the energy gets awakened later on after the proper base is there in Ram and Krishna Upasana. Ram Nam mein kitni taakat hai? Tremendous, but it will stabilize and clean everything up. You see, but in Krishna Upasana, there's a lot of bhakti and seva and all those things are there. But watch out for vasanas. You can get lost in a lot of ecstasy, and then mind will flip into Vishaya Bhog. 100% that will happen, unless one is really ready. In Shiv Upasana mein kya? It's more dhyan par hai. Wo jo Namah Shivaya mantra, Bhagwan Shankar ki jo Upasana, there is emotion, no doubt, but there is meditation in Shiv Upasana. And in Shiv Upasana, you get meditative strength from inside. So Gunatitananda Swami explained this. Dhyan ma abhiman vade. One of the deficiencies to watch out for is the ego will increase. Look at what a great meditator I am. I'm doing so many mantras, so many this. Because Shiv Ji ki upasana mein se, आपका जो internal ego strength increases a lot. Yes, you become very confident. Absolutely. Tremendous confidence आता है. But this confidence अच्छी बात है in Shiv Upasana. Because that is his, that is his fierce quality. He will bring about, ये जो Rudra is the devata in charge of this ahankar in the Antaḥkaraṇa. So ये जो मन बुद्धि चित्त अहंकार है, इसके सब देवता है. And they're energy centers and they're actually forms of God, of Bhagwan Shankar ke form hai. So the ahankar ke jo, the devata that is in charge of ahankar is Rudra. Yes. It's amazing, that's a little bit more in technical stuff. Maybe sometime we can talk about it. इसीलिए शिव जी की उपासना में, what is the intention? Intention should be, hey Prabhu, आप आशीर्वाद दीजिए, कृपा कीजिए, to take me towards mukta sthiti. That is the best prarthana. If you ask for other things, you'll get other things also. But watch out for ahankar. In sadhana mein ahankar nahi aana chahiye. You see, so that can happen in meditation. They happen in any kind of meditation. But Shiv Ji ki upasana is more towards dhyan. Krishna ki upasana is more towards emotional bhakti. Ram ki upasana is also emotional bhakti, but it is a stabilizing emotion. The Ram, the name, the mantra Ram is a much more harmonizing and stabilizing mantra in the initial stages than the Krishna mantra. Krishna mantra mein ye Shakti ka bahut influence hai isme. There's a lot of Shakti inside there. So that's why it's going to open up lot of power, open up a lot of emotions, and they can start spinning around. Rasik marg. Vachanamrut mein this discussion is in Vachanamrut itself. Brahma Gyan ka marg or Rasik marg. Rasik marg, Shriji Maharaj kehte, very few have realized God just by pure Rasik marg. People have tried, but it's not easy because your vasanas will spin you around. That is why that Brahma Swarupini Bhakti we were talking about is the key. That I am Brahman, the Jnana, Vairagya, Niyam, everything should be in place. And so that the bhakti that is Brahma Swarupini, that I am Brahman, I am, out of the entanglements of Maya. Nijatmanam Brahmarupam. That's what Shankaracharya ji taught, right? All the way through. So that kind of bhakti is protected, it's the higher bhakti. And that is the right kind of bhakti. Otherwise we'll keep spinning. And you can keep spinning not just in this lifetime, lifetime after lifetime. Satsang mein bhi interest hai, and Bhagwan ki bhakti bhi chal rahi hai, and then these vasanas are there. So this becomes a yoga bhrashta. In the Gita, this is described. It becomes a yoga bhrashta. Yoga karne ke liye, try to connect with God. Bhrashta meaning the deficiency is there. You fall back. Rebirth occurs again in some spiritual family again to try this process again, to go again. And Bhagwan Krishna says, wherever you have left off is where you'll continue. That is the way the Prakriti works. I know some of these ideas seem a little bit perhaps complex, but ask me about it if you have questions about it. So make sure it's clear. There should not be any confusion about anything at all. Right? So bahut dhyan rakhna isme. That if you're going to do any upasana, is it the right upasana? What is the criteria for that? Who is the Sadguru for that upasana? Every upasana has a Sadguru. Or multiple Sadgurus are there, really enlightened saints for that upasana. And there are different gurus for that also. So we have to keep that in mind. And they're available, everything is available. And so that's the difference between bhakti and upasana. So keep all these points in mind and see how the progression happens. If it's, look, let me just say one final thing. If any of you are really 100% intent on Devi Upasana, if you, I'm going to just mention this one more time. If you are really going to do that, my humble prarthana is that you have to make Ramakrishna Paramahansa your Guru. I don't think there's anybody else, tell you the truth. He has to be in the center as Satpurush, as great saint. Unke jo gossip hai, unke jo teachings hai, if you make him your guru, you can make him guru for other upasanas also, but if you make him your guru for Shakti Upasana, he will protect your upasana and guide you all the way through. but without making him guru or somebody equivalent, like somebody who's really enlightened, it is not advisable, right? So itna thoda dhyan rakhna. And there's one more thing that could be done. You can make Shivji your guru, but you have to do a lot of Shiv Upāsanā and then let him guide. So thoda, you have to see how this all works out. If you're intent on doing that, aapki ichha. But theek hai, so Ardhanareshwar Swarup is good. Shiv Shakti are one. वो तो एक ही तत्व है, हमारे में ही है. But the problem is not because of the upasanas. The problem is inside of us. We have ego, we have ahankar, we have vasanas, we have anger, we have this, we have that. It all has to be cleaned up first. In the Swaminarayan Sampradaya, the whole foundation is Sant. Sant ka mahima. That's very nice. Sadhuta pehli aani chahiye जीवन में. Then everything else will come after that. If that is not there, lot of deficiencies are there. So that's another thing to keep in mind, right? So let's close for now for today, and then we'll talk a lot more about this in many different ways. Please do ask questions, make comments. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya, Surya Koti Samaprabha, Nirvignam Kurumedeva, Sarvakarishu Sarvadaum Ganganapate Namaha, Om Aim Rim Klim Chamundai Viche Swaha, Durge Rakshani Tata Swaha, Om Rim Swaha, Om Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha Swaha.